Carlton have had a horrid 2025 season, starting from the first round when they lost to a young Richmond side where they were heavy favourites, going from being in front of halftime in many games in the start of the season to losing those games, and now losing to North Melbourne by 11 points to getting smashed at Adelaide Oval by 50 points against Port Adelaide. With finals pretty much over in 2025, there's a question on many people's minds, and a lot of discussion is about this. Should Carlton coach Michael Voss be sacked? My opinion on this situation is I don't think Michael Voss should be sacked right now. How does sacking a coach halfway through the year really benefit the team? With 8 games to go, and they are sitting in 11th. Now, I did say that they're not going to make finals, and I don't think they will because there's a lot of teams that are better than Carlton. But they are only in 11th spot. They're not exactly at the bottom of the ladder, but they've just had some really bad losses this year, and it just doesn't look like there's going to be a bit of a turnaround. But you never know what could happen in 8 games. You know, Carlton a couple of years ago, they did turn around their season and actually made finals and made a preliminary final. So people do forget that sometimes that Carlton can do that with the potential of some of their star players. But the problem with this Carlton side is it's not the top end talent. It's not your Paddy Cripps or your Curnows or your Wiederings and all that, even though Curnow hasn't been as amazing. It's those next batch of players, you know, those B graders. They've probably got a lot of those C graders, a lot of those fringe players who are not really stepping up. So it's not making Carlton that side who's going to really push up. But as I said before, with Michael Voss, I think you've got to give him to the end of the year, see if he can turn this around. If it does get worse, now they do have some tough games coming up, Collingwood and Brisbane are the next 2 games, so it's going to be a very tough one for him. I would still give him to the end of the season, see what he can do with Carlton, and then if it ends up being the same as what it is, I would say sack him and move on from that. Just don't see the benefit of them moving on midway through the season. Now, that is my opinion, but I will probably tell you what is going to happen. I feel like what is going to happen is he's either going to get sacked in the next few days, or it is that next game against Collingwood. If a similar result happens, I think he's in a bit of trouble. But let's just see what happens. You never know. It could be a turnaround, but watching the game against Port Adelaide, geez, it doesn't look like there's much happening because they were terrible. And Port Adelaide just rang rings around them, but I don't think Port were even playing at their absolute best. I think Carlton were just terrible on the night. I don't know. They just looked a bit disinterested. Maybe the sacking could happen now. Maybe he's lost the players. Who knows what happens, but I don't think the full blame should be on Michael Voss. I think it's the rest of the coaching. I think it's the players. They've got to own up to this because, you know, sometimes the effort that wasn't there in some situations, you can't blame the coach for that. Yes, he can rev them up, but that doesn't mean that the players can't rev themselves up and really be ready for these games, especially this one against Port Adelaide, who are in a very similar position as them. And if they got their win, you never know, they could have easily made the jump, but did not show up. I think some of them may also have to come down to list management and the drafting of that. Did they get the right players? Obviously, they do have some really good players, as I mentioned, but there are some players that just haven't really come along yet. Obviously, let's see if when Jacob Smith gets back from his ACL, that could make a big difference. So they're a bit unlucky with that one. And also the board. Maybe they need to do a bit more as well. So I think there's got to be blame all around here. You've got to remember with Michael Voss as well, he actually has a win-loss ratio of 53%, which isn't terrible. And he has got Carlton into a preliminary final. They were 5 goals up in that prelim, don't forget. So they were actually close to making a grand final. And they made finals last year, even though they did get smashed by Brisbane in the elimination final. He actually has a better win-loss ratio at Carlton than Sam Mitchell does actually at Hawthorn. Michael Voss actually has the best win-loss ratio for any Carlton coach since David Parkin. And Carlton fans will know, David Parkin was the last Carlton premiership winning coach back in 1995. So does that say something? Does that say something of Michael Voss done all right with Carlton, or it just shows how bad Carlton have been since 1995? I think, are we reading too much into this with Michael Voss saying he's a bad coach? Who knows? I don't think he's as bad as what people make him out to be, but I think the writing is nearly on the wall here. I think maybe if he has another bad performance, it is against Collingwood, who is the ladder leaders at the moment. If they have a really bad performance against them, I think my gut feel is he will be sacked. Unless he gets sacked right now, who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, that is my opinion. That's what I believe should happen, but then also giving you the opinion of what I think is going to happen, which I don't fully agree with. So let me know what you think. What is your opinion on this situation? Do you think Michael Voss will get sacked, or do you think they'll hang on to the end of the year, then sack him, or do you think they will keep him further? Let me know in the comments below.